Hey there, fantasy owners. Welcome to LTC Fantasy here. Not sure if you're chiming in watching via YouTube or listening via podcast, but really do appreciate you watching or listening no matter how you're streaming the episode. Today's our midweek waiver wire episode, so we're going to look at some goaltenders, some defensemen, some forwards that are low ownership, that are either on hot streaks or gaining some opportunity due to injuries, etc., to hopefully help strengthen your fantasy roster and help you out not only for this week but future weeks as well. So basically we'll get right into it. Some goaltenders to look at this week. Look at Craig Anderson from Buffalo. He's owned in 13% of Yahoo leagues. He has 6 starts this year. He has 3 wins, 4 counting tonight. They just blew out Montreal 7-2 there. He has a 2.82 goals against average, 9.10 save percentage. With Comrie going on IR, he's expected to be out multiple weeks. Look at Anderson to get quite a few starts going forward. Another one's Philip Gustafson from Minnesota there, owned in 19% of Yahoo leagues. He has 2 wins in his last 4 starts there. Fleury's on the IR, another situation where he's gaining some opportunity due to injury, and he should get the majority of the starts going forward. Another one is in Edmonton. Look at Stuart Skinner. He's owned in 49% of Yahoo leagues. He started the last 4 games there. He's 4-4 overall, 2.52 goals against average, 9.30 save percentage. Overall, his numbers are better than Campbell's. He's outplaying him, and they're letting him run with it, having 4 in a row so far. Another one is Matt Murray over in Toronto, owned in 61% of Yahoo leagues. He's 2-1 so far, 2.33 goals against average, 9.33 save percentage. Since his return from injury, he's been really good, obviously with the save percentage, goals against. And he will get a lot of starts with Samsonov being on the IR there. The last one's Martin Jones in Seattle. He's owned in 64% of Yahoo leagues. 7-3 in his last 10 games played there. He's 2 or fewer goals in 8 of his last 10 starts, so that's really good. Seattle surprising. Jones is playing well. No reason why you shouldn't try and pick him up there. Before we do get into D-Men, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Really would appreciate the support as we're trying to grow the channel there. If you're listening via podcast, remember to hit follow, hit that heart, depending what platform you're listening on, and we'll get into some D-Men. There's my little plug. D-Men, look at Filip Hronek from Detroit there. He's owned in 44% of Yahoo leagues. Playing on the second line, second power play unit. He has 6 points his last 4 games with 9 shots on goal and 7 blocks. He's really hot right now. He's been pretty steady all season, so he'd be a really good depth piece if he's available in your league to snag him there. Next one's Nick Perbix in Tampa Bay there, owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues. Playing on the second pairing, he has 5 points his last 6 games. He did miss the last 2 games there, so do check that he is healthy. He's listed as day-to-day, so should be back soon. But in a real deep league and how he's been the last little while, no reason why he wouldn't be a fairly decent depth piece for you, especially in deeper leagues. Next one's Noah Hannafin from Calgary, owned in 51% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on that top pairing second power play unit. He's put up 7 points his last 9 games, 29 shots on goal and 20 blocks. He's been really good of late. He was, I believe it was 48 points last year, so you know he can put up some offense. Just a slow start for him, which let his ownership drop. So the way he's trending, I'd definitely try and grab him if you can. Next one's Kelly Rosen from St. Louis there. 0% owned, so available everywhere. Playing on the third pairing, but he has put up 4 points his last 7 games there. 12 shots on goal. In a real deep league, he might be able to provide some depth for you. Next one's Adam Pelech for the Islanders there, owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues. Plays in the top pairing. He has 4 points the last 7 games, so over half point per game. He has 11 shots on goal, 8 hits, and 9 blocks. So you get a little bit of everything with him, chipping in a little bit everywhere. Plays top pairing minutes, so in a real, not even real deep league, a deep league, he should provide some depth for you. Going back to Tampa Bay, look at Ian Cole. He's only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on the second pairing. He has 5 points the last 6 games, 16 hits, and 19 blocks. His recent offense really is a surprise. He's not known for his offense these last few years, but he definitely gets you some blocks and hits. So if that's what you need, the offense will just be a bonus, and depending on the format of your league, could provide a fairly decent depth piece. Next one's Esa Lindell from Dallas Air, owned in 10% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on the third pairing. He has 4 points his last 5 games, 10 hits and 8 blocks. He's similar to Cole, that the value is in the hits and blocks there. Recent offense is a bonus for you, so if you do get him and he chips in offensively, that's just a little bit of an add. So depending how your league is formatted, again, could provide some decent depth. Next one's Cam Fowler over in Anaheim. He's only owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top pairing and top power play unit now. He's currently on a 4-game point streak where he has 7 points in those 4 games and 11 shots on goal. He has been disappointing to start this year, but he's fairly consistently over that 30-35 point range. Of course, he isn't going to get 7 points every 4-game stretch like he's on right now, but could provide some depth in a deeper league for you. Next one's Marcus Pettersson over in Pittsburgh, owned in 7% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that top pairing, and he has 5 points the last 7 games there, with 12 shots on goal, 16 hits, and 12 blocks. So the offense is a bit of a surprise with him again, but he is a little more well-rounded than every cat, so depending how broad-based your cats are counted in your league, could provide some decent depth for you. Next one's J.J. Moser over in Arizona. He's owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues. Down to the third pairing, plays top power play unit. He has 5 points the last 6 games with 10 shots on goal. He can be a bit streaky there, but he can bring some decent depth in a deeper league. With Chychrun back, it remains to be seen how that'll affect his ice time, but he's still listed on the top power play, and he did get an assist in the Chychrun's first game back, so deeper league should provide some depth for you. Next one's Jake Sanderson over in Ottawa. He's owned in 45% of Yahoo leagues, plays top pairing, top power play unit, and he has 6 points in his last 11 games, so is over a half point per game, 27 shots on goal, and 19 blocks. He has been fairly steady throughout the season. The kid's gaining opportunity and flourishing in it. Might not overwhelm you with offense, but he's been pretty steady, chipping in points here and there. Real nice amount of blocks and hits for a young kid, so could provide some decent depth depending how your league is formatted there. And the last D-man is Vince Dunn over in Seattle. He's owned in 36% of Yahoo leagues, plays top pairing, top power play unit. He has 8 points his last 12 games with 21 shots on goal. He really is the alpha male on the back end in Seattle. He's getting all the prime opportunities, and with his decent production, depending how deep your league is, and could provide some decent value for you. Now we'll move along to some forwards. First one off the list is Boone Jenner over in Columbus. Listed as a center, owned in 35% of Yahoo leagues. Plays top line, top power play unit, and he has 10 points his last 8 games, 30 shots on goal. So a ton of shots there, 13 hits, 12 blocks. He's been really good these last few weeks, chipping in basically every stat category. Plus minus kind of hurts a little bit, especially with the goaltending in Columbus. But other than that, he'd be a really nice ad for you. Next one's Thomas Hertl over in San Jose, listed as a center, owned in 57% of Yahoo leagues. Plays top line, top power play unit. He has 14 points in his last 11 games, and he's a plus 10, which really stands out if that's counted in your league, especially playing in San Jose there. He's been really hot and has really good chemistry with Meyer. Be a fairly safe depth move for you. Next one's Kirby Dach over in Montreal, listed as center right winger, owned in 44% of Yahoo leagues. Plays top line, top power play unit. He has 13 points in his last 10 games there, with 5 of those points being on the power play. He really has found his place on the top line in Montreal, been fitting in well with Suzuki and Caulfield, so no reason why he shouldn't be a fairly safe depth piece going forward. Next one's Matt Barzal over for the Islanders there, listed as a center, owned in 64% of Yahoo leagues, plays top line, top power play unit. He has 11 points the last 8 games with 19 shots on goal, 8 hits and 4 blocks. His hits and blocks have been picking up a little bit of late, not known for that. Finally got off the snide and got his first couple goals of the year there. Well over a point per game overall for the season, so he should be a really good depth piece for you. Next one's Trevor Moore over in LA, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 42% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, second power play unit, and he has 8 points his last 8 games with 24 shots on goal and 9 hits. He's been really good over the last little while there, gets you some decent offense, starting to throw the body around. In deeper formats, he should be a fairly solid depth piece for you. Next one's Ryan O'Reilly over in St. Louis, listed as a center, owned in 43% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, second power play unit. He has 7 points the last 8 games there with 14 shots on goal and 7 blocks. It was a slow start for him, but he's been a lot better of late, as you can tell by his recent offense and chipping in with blocks and that. Also, if face-off wins are counted in your league, he's one of the best in the league. They'll pile up a ton of numbers for you, so could provide some decent depth in the right format. Next one's Kevin Hayes over in Philly, listed as a center, owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, plays top line, top power play unit. Currently has 7 points during a 6-game point streak there with 18 shots on goal. He's been really good most of the season there. He deserves a little more love than 23% ownership, that's for sure. Next one is Kevin LeBlanc over in San Jose there. Listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues. Plays top pairing, second power play unit. He has 7 points in his last 8 games with 18 shots on goal. He really can be a little bit streaky, but being on the top line for a while and in a deep league, he could provide some decent depth for you on the wing. Next one is Victor Arvidsson over in LA, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 31% of Yahoo leagues. Plays second line, second power play unit. He too, like Moore, has 8 points his last 8 games there with 16 shots on goal and 5 blocks. He's been healthy and pretty consistent all year. He isn't as spurty as some of the others. He should be a fairly decent depth piece for you. Going over to Detroit now, look at David Perron. He's listed as a right winger, owned in only 60% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top line, top power play unit. He's currently on a 4-game point streak where he's put up 7 points. And in those 4 games, he has 2 points on the power play, 10 shots on goal, 6 hits, and 3 blocks. Really is contributing pretty much in most cats there. Depending how your league is formatted, could provide some really decent depth. Back in San Jose, look at Logan Couture, listed as a center, owned in 32% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, top power play unit. He's potted 9 points in his last 7 games there, with 3 of those being on the power play, 16 shots on goal, 13 hits, 6 blocks. Again, another forward that's kind of contributing in every category, could provide some decent depth for you in the right format. Next one's Dylan Strome over in Washington there, listed as center, right winger, 28% ownership, playing on the top line, top power play unit, and he has only 1 point in his last 6 games, but he had 6 points of previous 5, so he really is streaky, but in a real deep league, because he does get to play with Ovechkin on that power play always, he kind of jumps between first and second line center, could bring some decent depth. Going back to St. Louis, look at Jordan Kyrou, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 64% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the third line, but on that top power play unit. He's put up 8 points his last 5 games there with 17 shots on goal. He really is heating up. He was so slow to start, that's why his ownership dropped. Now he's picking it up. It'd be the right time to grab him if you can. Next one is Thomas Tatar over in Jersey, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 20% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the top line, second power play unit. He's put up 10 points his last 11 games there, which is pretty nice production. He's playing well on that top line, and as long as he stays there, he should provide you some pretty decent value. Next one is Jason Zucker over in Pittsburgh, listed as a left winger, owned in 37% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, second power play unit, and he has 7 points his last 7 games there, 21 shots on goal, 17 hits. He's been really consistent throughout the year, been on Malkin's wing pretty much the whole year, and with his health and his production there, he definitely should provide some decent value and a nice depth in the right format there. Next one's Alex Killorn over in Tampa, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, second power play unit, and he has 7 points his last 5 games there and 11 shots on goal. He's a good, solid veteran. You basically know what you're going to get there. Picking it up offensively in the right format, and depending how deep the league is, could provide some pretty nice depth there. Another one in Tampa is Brandon Hagel, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 37% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top line, top power play unit. He'll drop down to only 2 points the last 6 games, but he put up 8 points the previous 6 games. He's been on that top line for a while, plays on the top power play, around Kucherov and point all the time. There's a good chance of piggyback points, so depending how your league is formatted, nice added depth piece. Another one in Washington is Anthony Mantha, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 13% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the third line, second power play unit. He's put up 6 points his last 8 games with 16 shots on goal. He really is streaky this year, but he does get some power play time, so in a deep league with the right formatting, he could provide some depth for you. We'll go back to LA. Look at Phillip Danault, listed as a center, owned in 37% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on the second line, second power play unit, and he's put up 7 points his last 6 games there. In that time, he's a +6, 13 shots on goal, and 6 blocks. He really is a well-rounded forward. In the right format, he really should be a decent depth piece. Going to Columbus, look at Sean Corelli, listed as a center, owned in 2% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on that fourth line. He has 4 goals and 1 assist the last 4 games. 12 shots on goal, 13 hits, 6 blocks. Basically, chips in everywhere. He does only get 4th line minutes, so that makes him risky for a standard league, but in a really, really deep league, should provide some decent depth. Back to Montreal, look at Mike Hoffman, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, top power play unit. He put up 6 points his last 6 games with 14 shots on goal. He has been really hot of late, but he did miss the last game. Not sure about Tuesday night. I haven't checked the box score yet if he did dress, but in the right formatting and how deep your league is, could be a decent depth piece for you. Going back to the Islanders, look at Brock Nelson, listed as a center, owned in 64% of Yahoo leagues. Centers at second line, plays on the top power play unit. He's put up 12 points the last 12 games there. 53 shots on goal, so just a ton if those are counted in your league there, and 12 hits. He really has been consistent all year. It'd be a good depth piece no matter how your league is formatted there. Going to Seattle, look at Jordan Eberle, listed as a right winger, owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, plays second line, top power play unit. He's put up 11 points his last 10 games there, 21 shots on goal, and 5 blocks. He's been really good these last few weeks there, so in a deeper league, because he doesn't wow you in points, but he gets you a decent amount of points, could provide some decent value. And the last forward's Adam Henrique over in Anaheim, listed as center left winger, owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues, playing top line, top power play unit. He's potted 9 points the last 9 games there, 25 shots on goal, and 5 blocks. So he's been really consistent the last few weeks. Not a lot of bagels in the stats columns there. So he could really be a nice added depth piece in a deep league. That's it for today's episode. We'll be out tomorrow with our weekend ads episode. If you did like it and you're watching via YouTube, remember to hit like, hit subscribe, remember that notification bell. If you're listening via podcast, remember to hit that heart, hit follow, hit subscribe, depending what platform you're watching it on, and we'll talk to you soon, and good luck there, fantasy owners.